Hello, welcome back to my channel if you're new here. My name is Mary and today's video is going to be 25 books that I'm excited for in the year 2025. I scoured Goodreads. They have a couple of articles, I guess, in the news and interviews section where they talk about books that are going to be released in the coming years, people's most excited books, etc. That is where the majority of these came from. Some of them were already on my radar, some of them I learned about through looking through Goodreads. But I have come up with a list of 25 books that I'm hoping that I will get to in the new year. So last year, I was not very good at reading new releases at all. I pretty much didn't read a single 2024 release until November when the Goodreads Choice Awards were announced. Since then, I've rectified that a little bit. I've got a lot of them on hold so I can catch up and sort of read some of the most popular books from the past year. But I really wanted to focus 2024 on reading backlist books because I have so many backlist books on my TBR still. And I've sort of gotten to the point where I'm like, kind of just ditching books from my TBR that I'm not super excited about anymore. But I'm not officially adding these to my TBR on Goodreads. I am just adding them to my on my radar list. And if I get them, I get them. A lot of them I actually already have on hold for my library, anticipating them coming in. So hopefully I will get to read them pretty close to their release dates. But without further ado, I am going through these 25 books in the order that Goodreads has their release date listed. I know that sometimes things change, release dates get pushed, etc. So don't hold me to any of this, but I am just going to go through the books that I have on this list. So the first one I have is All the Water in the World by Irene Kafal. And this is a sci-fi dystopia book. It's supposed to be in the same tradition as Station 11. It's a literary thriller set partly on the roof of New York's Museum of Natural History in a flooded future. And I am really interested in this idea. I do like literary dystopian books, I guess, again, like Station 11, or even like The Book of M by Pink Shepherd, which is one of my favorite books of all time. So I am hoping that this has like a similar vibe. It's also kind of giving, what is that movie from the early 2000s with Dennis Quaid? What is that one called? That one's Frozen, The Earth is Frozen, but it's giving a similar vibe with the cover, so I am excited to read this one. If you've been around here, you know I love a dystopian. The next one I have is a romantasy. I have not read a ton of romantasy, but I would like to rectify that because people seem to love it. So I have The Starlit Heir by Amalia Howard, which both of these are set to come out January 7th. I don't think I've said that, but they have publication dates on Goodreads of January 7th, so right in the new year. This is supposed to be a bladesmith blessed by the stars, a prince with a dangerous secret, a god bound in shadows. Sorry. It says, His Imperial Majesty King Zarek requests your presence as his esteemed guest. So it's a blacksmith, apparently, Soraya Sab. She thinks she's being invited to see the king as a joke, but it turns out that he actually wants her, I guess. So it seems like it's going to be a little bit of a hate to love type thing. A lot of romantasies have that trope of people who are like pitted against each other by their fantasy worlds and then they fall in love. So I am excited to read this one. I think the cover is very pretty. It's very interesting. There's like a wolf with feathers. Is that a griffin? You'll have to let me know. I know a griffin is like a lion with eagle wings, but I'm, again, tentatively excited for this. I have not read a ton of romantasy. I don't know that it will be a genre for me, but I'm excited to give it a shot. And I like the idea that it's a standalone because I think a lot of them are series, and I've heard for several series that are very popular that the romantasy elements don't really come in until like the end of book 1 into book 2, and I'm impatient. So I like a slow burn, but not that slow for me personally. The next book with a release date of January 14th is The JFK Conspiracy, The Secret Plot to Kill Kennedy and Why It Failed by Brad Meltzer and Josh Mitch. And I won't lie, I'm a little bit of a fan of history conspiracy theories. I think they're very fun. And I don't really know what this will be about. Apparently, the guys who are writing it, or who wrote it, I guess, also wrote a book called The Nazi Conspiracy and The Lincoln Conspiracy, which I have not read either of those. But again, if you've been around here, you know that I like to read nonfiction. I dabble in some nonfiction history stuff because I think it's very interesting. And I am very excited to read this one. I will say when I was in 7th grade, we learned about the JFK assassination and all of the different conspiracy theories that go along with it in my history class. Or it was called social studies, but whatever. And my teacher said that he wouldn't tell us what he thought happened until he wasn't our teacher anymore. And he stopped teaching at the school after that year. Can't find him on social media. I desperately, like, is that weird? I want to be like, hey, Mr. Griffiths, if you know him, what's your conspiracy theory? As far as I can tell, he doesn't have Facebook. But anyways, that book is coming out. I'm very excited to read it. I hopefully will get it as an audiobook so I can listen to it, because that's how I enjoy reading my nonfiction for the most part. The next book on here is Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. Not sure if I'm saying that right, but this is another sci-fi book. And it says, the future of storytelling is here. Life has thrown Zelu some curveballs over the years, but when she suddenly dropped from her university job and her latest novel is rejected, all in the middle of her sister's wedding, her life is upending. Disabled, unemployed, and from a nosy, high-achieving, judgmental family, she's not sure what comes next. In her hotel room that night, she takes the risk that will define her life. She decides to write a book very unlike her others, a sci-fi drama about androids and AI after the extinction of humanity, and everything changes. What follows is a tale of love and loss, fame and infamy, of extraordinary events in one world and another. And as Zelu's life evolves, the lines between fiction and reality begin to blur, because sometimes a story really does have the power to reshape the world. So this sounds really interesting to me. It sounds a bit like, oh, what is it called? There was another book that I read that was actually a series of a collection of short stories that kind of intertwined. When a Man Falls from the Sky, I think. There were a couple of short stories in that had like the element of telling a story, changing the world. They were primarily with like a therapist. I can't remember the exact breakdown, but I'm very interested to read this one. The next book, also coming out January 14th, is Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. I have a mixed history with Alice Feeney, excuse me. This is a mystery thriller. That's what she writes. I loved Rock, Paper, Scissors by her, which I read earlier this year. And then immediately after that, I read Daisy Darker and did not like it at all. So I'm very curious to see how I will feel about this one. But it's about an author who's having the worst best day of his life. Don't know what that means. But it says he calls his wife to share some exciting news. She's driving home. He hears her slam on her brakes, get out of the car, and then nothing. When he eventually finds her car by the cliff edge, the headlights are on, the driver door is open, and her phone is still there, but his wife has disappeared. A year later, he is still overcome with grief and desperate to know what happened to her. He can't sleep and he can't write, so he travels to a tiny Scottish island to try to get his life back on track. Then he sees the impossible, a woman who looks exactly like his missing wife. So I'm very excited to read this one. I do like, what I liked about Rock, Paper, Scissors was the like husband and wife dynamic. So I'm curious to see how that is in this one when it's, when they're not actually together. I'm wondering if there's going to be like flashbacks. I imagine there will be to their life together that gives you like hints as to what happened to her. But Alice Feeney also always writes books that are set in like a secluded setting, which is something that I tend to really enjoy in mystery thrillers. So again, I am very excited for this one. I hope that I enjoy it, but she's a mixed bag for me, so we'll see. The next book I have is coming out on January 28th, and that is I Am Not Jessica Chen by Anne Liang. And Anne Liang wrote a YA contemporary that was nominated in the Goodreads Choice Awards this year. I didn't get to it in time. I had it on hold, and then my hold wasn't going to come in time, so I prioritized other things. I can't remember what that book is called, but I would like to read that one still. I Hope This Doesn't Find You, I think is the one that she wrote. It sounded interesting. This, again, is a YA contemporary with a romantic subplot. It says, after getting rejected by every single Ivy League she applied to and falling short of all her Asian immigrant parents' expectations, whoa, that was a mouthful, 17-year-old Jenna Chen makes a wish to become her smarter, infinitely more successful, Harvard-bound cousin, Jessica Chen, only for her wish to come true, literally. Now trapped inside Jessica's body with access to Jessica's most private journals and secrets, Jenna soon discovers that being a top student at an elite, highly competitive Havenwood private academy isn't quite what she imagined. Worse, as everyone, including her own parents, start having trouble remembering who Jenna Chen is, or if she even existed, Jenna must decide if playing the role of the perfect daughter and student is worth losing her true self forever. So I like a YA contemporary on occasion. This one sounds really interesting. It's gonna deal a lot with like jealousy of family members and like competition and rivalry. I read another book, To All the Boys, I think. Oh, I can't remember. I'll try to pop a picture of it here if I can remember. It had like a purple and pink cover. But that one was about a girl whose older sister was like the perfect child, and then she was really struggling with mediocrity. And that book really focused on her like romantic relationships with various crushes that she had, which this one doesn't really sound like that's what it's going to do. But I am very excited to read this one and get to it. I hope that I enjoy it if I do read it. Next, on February 4th, Memorial Days by Geraldine Brooks is coming out. Geraldine Brooks is an author. I believe she primarily writes historical fiction. Don't quote me on that. I did read Year of Wonders by her several years ago. I have it Where is it? It's back here somewhere on my historical fiction shelf. I did really enjoy that. It's about the plague in a small English town as the plague comes through. But this is supposed to be a heartrending and beautiful memoir of sudden loss and a journey to peace. And I have talked about this before. I really like reading about grief explored because I feel like grief is something that everybody goes through, but we don't really talk about. So I am excited to read this. And then also, I just love a well-written memoir. And the idea that an author is writing a memoir, to me, indicates that it will be well-written. That could be misguided, but I'm very excited to read this book and see what I think about it. And it's tagged as nonfiction, memoir, biography, adult, death. So I think it's gonna be right up my alley. Next book coming out on February 4th is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I have read several Ali Hazelwood books at this point. I think I've read 3. And I've loved 2 of them. I felt indifferent kind of about one. Not in Love is the one I didn't really care for, but I loved The Love Hypothesis. I gave it 5 stars. And I loved Bride. Spoiler for my December wrap up. I read that earlier this month. Absolutely loved it. Was shocked that I loved it, but I really want Ali Hazelwood to write more paranormal romance because I feel like she's got a really great authorial tone for it. This is about a competitive diver and an ace swimmer jump into forbidden waters in this steamy college romance. So I am tentatively looking forward to this one. I'm worried it's going to lean a little more towards where Not in Love was, where it really, like, there was no slow burn. It was immediately very physical, and then the feelings kind of came afterwards. And in Not in Love, the reason that I didn't love it is because I felt like the characters were very emotionally constipated, and I did not see them grow really the way that I would prefer. And I know that's a personal preference. Other people probably did really relate to those characters and liked the way that their romance played out, but to me, it read very immaturely. This concerns me in this book because it is college students, and college students they're younger, so they might be more immature. I'm not saying that you're immature if you're a college student. I'm just saying that, like, sometimes romances that focus on younger people can have immature tropes that drive me nuts. So we'll see how we feel about this. But it does seem like they are trying to get into the Olympics, and it says that they start an arrangement. So I'm curious to see if it's fake dating, which is something that I absolutely love. It's one of the reasons I loved The Love Hypothesis so much. I love fake dating. So I'm, again, tentatively excited for this one. I really like Ali Hazelwood's writing style. I think she does a good smut scene. I think she's good at that. And I think she can be really good at writing very emotional characters. Sometimes the emotions that the character's feeling, I just don't like, if that makes sense, which is nobody's fault but mine, okay? But I am excited to read this one. The next book I have is a contemporary general fiction with a romance subplot. It comes out on February 11th, 2025, and it is called 3 Days in June by Anne Tyler. Anne Tyler's written a few things that are on my TBR, I believe. One of them is like Clock Dance, I think, and there might be another one, but I've heard good things about her writing. I've heard good things about her as an author. She's very well established, so I'm excited to read something by her. This says Gail Baines is having a bad day. To start, she loses her job or quits, depending on who you ask. Tomorrow, her daughter Debbie is getting married, and she hasn't even been invited to the spa day organized by the mother of the groom. Then Gail's ex-husband Max arrives unannounced on her doorstep, carrying a cat without a place to stay and without even a suit. But the true crisis lands when Debbie shares with her parents a secret she has just learned about her husband-to-be. It will not only throw the wedding into question, but also stir up Gail and Max's past. So, I really like a family story explored. It sounds like this one is going to have the layers that I enjoy in that, where, like, we're going to learn about the parents and their divorce and their relationship and the secrets that they have. We're also going to learn about this daughter and her relationship with her fiance and maybe some stuff with his family. Again, all stuff that I really, really love in books, so I am really hoping that I enjoy this one. It's also taking place over a very short period of time, which I find intriguing because usually with a book that has that many like layers to it, I find they're often told over like long spans of characters' lives. Like that Anne Napolitano book that I read and The Dutch House, which were both books that I loved. Those are really mainly focused on sibling relationships, and this sounds like more like it's going to be focused on like the parents' dynamics, the dynamic with parent and child, and then the child's dynamic with her partner. But either way, I'm very excited for this one. The next book on my list is We All Live Here by Jojo Moyes. I really enjoyed Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. Jojo Moyes is my mom's favorite author, so I know there are a couple other books that my mom loves the book The Giver of Stars. I have not read it yet, but I would like to. But this is a new release, Jojo Moyes, so I'm hoping that I can maybe convince my mom to read it at the same time and we can have a sort of like back and forth discussion on it. I think that would be really fun. But Jojo Moyes typically writes like chick lit, romance, contemporary stuff. And this one says, Lila Kennedy has a lot on her plate. A broken marriage, 2 wayward daughters, a house that is falling apart, and an elderly stepfather who seems to have quietly moved in. Her career is in free fall and her love life is complicated. So when her real dad, a man she has barely seen since he ran off to Hollywood 35 years ago, suddenly appears on her doorstep, it feels like the final straw. But it turns out even the family you thought you could never forgive might have something to teach about love and what it actually means to be a family. Again, I love a family story. So I'm very excited to read this one. It's supposed to be published February 11th, and hopefully I will get to it shortly after it's released. Next, I'm going to talk about a mystery thriller that is supposed to come out on February 11th as well, and this is You Are Fatally Invited by Andy Pliego. So this is another mystery thriller about an author that seems to be a pretty popular trend right now. I know, is it the last book that Riley Sager published was about an author last year, I think, or maybe the year before, but I feel like I've read a lot of synopses recently where it's a mystery thriller about an author who is like struggling to write their next book and then they get thrown into these like shady shenanigans. But this one says that it's an anonymous author who is hiring a former aspiring writer, to host a writing retreat at his private manor off the coast of Maine. And then there are 6 thriller authors who are all invited to go to this. It does sound a little like it's going to be a 1-by-1 type retelling. Not 1-by-1. That was the Ruth Ware book, which is a retelling of the Agatha Christie thing I'm thinking about. And Then There Were None. That's what it is. But I haven't read And Then There Were None. I have had it spoiled for me, unfortunately. So to that. But I am very excited to read this one. I do like, again, I like a secluded setting. I like the closed circle mystery thing where you're trying to figure out who the culprit is, because I think the people are going to end up dying. Like, I just think that's a really fun, sounds twisted to say, but it's like a fun setup for me. So I am excited to read this one. I have not ever heard of this author before, so hopefully I will enjoy it. Then on February 25th, Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister comes out. This is another mystery thriller. So it's set on the longest day of the year, and Camilla is a new mother whose life is about to change forever. So she's been on maternity leave for months, and for the first time, she's going to drop her infant daughter off at daycare and return to her job as a literary agent. Camilla is supposed to go back to work. She's supposed to drop her infant baby off for the first time and leave maternity leave, but she wakes up on that day and her husband is nowhere to be found. So there is a hostage situation developing in London. The police tell her that her husband is involved, but he isn't a hostage. So turns out her husband is the gunman of this situation, and I imagine she's going to have to figure out like why he's doing that. But anyways, I'm very excited to read this one as well. I love a book of secrets. I can't deny it. So that's coming out again on February 25th? Next up, we have They Bloom at Night by Trang Ton Tran, which is supposed to be published on March 4th. And this is a YA horror fantasy involving algae bloom and like mutations, I think. So it kind of sounds a little like it's going to be like a climate dystopian. I don't know if that's true, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. So it says that a red algae bloom has taken over Mercy, Louisiana. Ever since a devastating hurricane, mutated wildlife lurks in the water that rises by the day. But Mercy has always been a place where monsters walk in plain sight, especially at its heart, the Cove, where Noon's life was upended long before the storm at a party her older boyfriend insisted on. Oh. Says that she must confront the past and decide if it's time to answer the monster itching at her skin. So this does sound like it's going to be a little bit body horror, but it also sounds like it's got to do, I assume, and it doesn't say this in here, so I can neither confirm nor deny if this is a spoiler, but it sounds like maybe she got assaulted. I think that might be the underlying subject matter that we're dealing with here. Could be wrong. I am often wrong, but that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this. The cover looks phenomenal, and it sounds very interesting. I like the idea of an internal conflict becoming external through body horror. That's one of the things about body horror that I find so intriguing. It's also something that I feel like is really common in grief horror, which is one of my favorite subgenres. So I'm very excited to read that one as well. Also on March 4th, another horror book is The Unworthy by Agustina Basterica. It's translated by Sarah Moses. This is the same author who wrote Tender is the Flesh, which is an incredible book about cannibalism that I really, really enjoyed. Agustina Basterica is from Argentina, and that's what she writes. I think this is a collection of short stories, but I could be wrong. Oh no, it's a novel. Good. Okay. So it says, from her cell in a mysterious convent, A woman writes the story of her life in whatever she can find, discarded ink, dirt, and even her own blood. A lower member of the sacred sisterhood, deemed an unworthy, she dreams of ascending to the ranks of the enlightened at the center of the convent and of pleasing the Forebodian superior sister. Okay, so it's supposed to be a soaring dystopian tale about climate crisis, ideological extremism, and the tidal pull of our most violent exploitative instincts. This is another unforgettable novel from a master of feminist horror. So, again, I loved Tender as the Flesh. I think I gave it 4 stars. I should probably up it to 5. It's a phenomenal book, and I'm very excited to read The Unworthy as well. Next up, also on March 4th, we have Dream Count by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which is supposed to be a book that she's been trying to write for like 10 years. I haven't read a ton by this author, but I did read Americana, and I really enjoyed it. I've also read some of her like feminist speeches. I know we should all be feminists. I've listened to that. It's basically a TED Talk that she made into a book that she then records again as an audiobook. And I watched the TED Talk when it first came out, so I won't lie. Listening to it again didn't really do much for me, but I really liked Americana. That one is about like African immigrants, and they were teenagers, they were in love. One of them ends up going to the UK, one of them goes to the US. It flashes forward in the future and their paths cross again. So I don't know if this is going to be similar, but it kind of sounds like it. So it's about Chiamaka, who's a Nigerian writer living in America. She's alone. It's during the pandemic, so maybe you'll like that or maybe you won't. That's so interesting. Why does this say that it was 10 years in the making? Maybe it's just 10 years in the making because she hasn't published a novel in 10 years. That makes more sense. Anyways, it's supposed to be about 4 women and their lives, their loves, their longings, and their desires, which is exciting to me. So we'll see. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's kind of a long summary. Again, probably because it's going into the lives of 4 women, but I am excited to read that one. And I do like her style of storytelling, or at least I did when I read Americana in 2018. That's how long it's been since I've read a book by her, but I'm excited, you know? Next up, coming out on March 18th, Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which is another prequel to The Hunger Games. This one I think is actually supposed to be Haymitch. Yeah, it's Haymitch Abernathy's story for The Hunger Games. Sorry if you could hear that click. Our automatic lights just turned on. Very exciting. But I'm really excited for this. I know when Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was rumored to be being released, people thought it was this book, and people were really disappointed that it was the backstory of President Snow. I, just like everybody else, am excited to read a Haymitch Abernathy story. I've seen some discourse on TikTok where people are speculating that there might be more queer undertones. A lot of people have said that, like, because queerness has become more mainstream for authors in recent years, they think that if the original Hunger Games had been released now, there wouldn't be the love triangle because there would have been more options for each of the characters, and that they are hoping that that will translate into this book. We'll see. But I don't even know if that's like based on any real information besides just like trends in publishing, but I'm excited to see. It's not tagged as queer. It's tagged as dystopian, fantasy, young adult, fiction, sci-fi, etc. But I love The Hunger Games. I'm a big Hunger Games fan, and I'm really excited to learn more about Haymitch's Hunger Games. Again, on March 25th, we have This Book Will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead. Ashley Winstead is a mystery thriller writer that I have not read from, but I have heard so many things about all of her books. I think she's from Texas, in like the area that I'm from, because she wrote a book about women living in Highland Park, which is a very rich neighborhood near where I grew up in Dallas. It's like, Highland Park is technically its own city, and it's surrounded by the rest of Dallas, but their zip code is their own thing, and their high school is its own school district, so that other people who are not rich cannot go, and it's fascinating to me. So I don't know if she's actually from there, but I think The Last Housewife is like kind of set in that environment. So I don't know how this will be, but it says, oh, I lied. I read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I did read that book. I didn't know that was by her. I don't know why I didn't know that. I liked that book fine. So maybe I shouldn't be as excited about this because I thought that was just like kind of a run-of-the-mill thriller. But this says it's the most famous crime in modern history, but she only knows the true story. Oh no, but only she knows the true story. So after the unexpected death of her father, college student Jane Sharp longs for a distraction from her grief. She becomes obsessed with true crime, befriending armchair detectives who teach her how to hunt killers from afar. In this morbid internet underground, Jane finds friendship, purpose, and even glory. So when news of the shocking deaths of 3 college girls in Delphine, Idaho, oh no. Okay, so I'm a little concerned that this book is actually about those kids at Idaho, was it Idaho State, who were murdered in their house by that guy. I don't know his name. I'm so sorry. And I guess allegedly murdered by him because his trial has not been completed. He's not been found guilty. So innocent until proven guilty, whatever. But I'm wondering if this is based on that. And I don't know how I feel about that. Because I know The Last Housewife, I think, was based on, gosh, I'm not going to remember what this is called either, but there was like a cult at Sarah Lawrence. Do you know what I'm talking about? I watched a Netflix documentary about it. Because I'm an armchair detective. No, I'm just kidding. But it's that cult in Sarah Lawrence where it was like a group of students and then one of their dads like indoctrinated them all in this cult. They were all like living together at his apartment. Do you know what I'm talking about? I think that book, The Last Housewife, was based on that, but it was like way in the future. Anyways, I'm wondering if this is supposed to be about those murders. That just happened. So if it is, that's kind of, I don't know, it seems very fast to be writing a book about that. I find that books that are based on real crimes, okay, are better when there's been some distance from the crimes. And also when you change a lot, like I like it. I think they're better when they're inspired by a crime, but not the same crime in the same location with the same names. I mean, usually they change the names, but that's all they change. So now I'm tentatively nervous about this book, but I do still plan, it's still on my list of things to be interested in and to look for next year. So you'll have to let me know what you think about that, because I know Anita Damonte Laughs Last is based on the life of Ana Mendieta, Ana Mendieta? I don't remember now. I'm going to drive myself nuts. But she was an artist, and literally like the types of art that they did was the same. They described the husband who may or may not have killed her as the same. They described her death in the same way. And like, I just feel like if you write a story like that, and also the real artist's family is like very distraught by that book because they feel like it enforces a lot of negative stereotypes about their daughter and about what happened to her, which is understandable. So I just think, like, I wish authors would be more careful. I don't know. Like, you just change the names and that's all you change. It icks me out a little bit. I don't know. But again, you'll have to let me know how you feel about that. So on a brighter note, on April 1st, Abby Jimenez is releasing a new book called Say You'll Remember Me, which is not supposed to be a part of a series at this point. Abby Jimenez is an author that I've read 3 full series by her. The most successful for me was the Part of Your World series. All of those books got 5 stars for me. I loved all 3 of them. I also read the Friend Zone series, and the first book I didn't really like. The second book I loved, and the third book I didn't like, I think. So maybe I've only read 2 series by her. But Part of Your World was like, it's probably going to be, it was one of my best books last year. And then the third book, and it might be on my best just for the summer. It might be on my best books this year. I loved all of those books. So I'm excited to see what Abby Jimenez comes out with next. This is supposed to be a new, playful, yet deeply emotional contemporary romance. And that tends to be what she does. And sometimes, to be honest with you, it's the deeply emotional parts that don't work for me. So we'll see. But it says, there might be no such thing as a perfect guy, but Xavier Rush comes disastrously close. A gorgeous veterinarian giving Greek god vibes, all while cuddling a tiny kitten? Immediately, yes. That is until Xavier opens his mouth and proves that even sculpted gods can say the absolute wrong thing. Like, really wrong. Of course, there's nothing Samantha loves more than proving an asshole wrong, unless, of course, he could admit he made a mistake. But after one incredible and seemingly endless date, possibly the best in living history, Samantha is forced to admit the truth that her family is in crisis and any kind of relationship would be impossible. Samantha begs Xavier to forget her, to remember their night together as a perfect moment, as crushing as that may be. Only no amount of distance or time is nearly enough to forget the something between them. And the only thing better than one single perfect memory is to make life and even love worth remembering. So again, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of family drama. There's been a lot of family drama in the past series that I was talking about with Abby Jimenez's books, especially the Part of Your World books. Each one of those deals with its own like family drama shit that's happening. So I loved all of those books. So I'm very hopeful that I will like this one as well. I don't know how I feel about emotionally constipated characters who are trying to push away love though. So we will have to see about that one. Then again, on April 22nd, Tina Knowles has a memoir coming out. It's called Matriarch, a memoir. Tina Knowles is Beyonce's mother. I don't know that much about Beyonce's upbringing besides what everybody knows. And I am fascinated to read what her mom has to say. So I'm not going to look through the rest of what this is because it's going to be Tina Knowles' memoir, but I'm intrigued, to say the least. So we'll see how that goes. Then on April 29th, Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang by Kylie Lee Baker comes out. This is a mystery horror thriller book, apparently. It's supposed to be a compelling, gory, ghostly romp. It says Cora Zhang is a crime scene cleaner, washing away the remains of brutal murders and suicides in Chinatown. But none of that seems so terrible when she's already witnessed the most horrific thing possible, her sister Delilah being pushed in front of a train. Before fleeing the scene, the murderer shouted 2 words, Bat Eater. The bloody messes don't really bother Cora. She's more bothered by the germs on the subway railing, the bare hands of a stranger, the hidden viruses in every corner, and the bite marks on her coffee table. Of course, ever since Delilah was killed in front of her, Cora can't be sure what's real and what's in her head. So again, I love grief horror. I'm very excited to read this one. Books that deal with grief are some of my favorite things. Books that manifest grief as like an external presence on your life is like, again, one of my favorite things. So I'm very excited to read that one. Another one that I'm really excited to read, which may be nerdy of me, on May 13th, Ron Chernow is releasing Mark Twain, a biography. And I'm excited to read this one. Mark Twain is not his real name. I can't remember what his actual name is. But he is releasing a memoir or a biography of Mark Twain, who is one of the most famous American writers to exist. The guy who wrote Huckleberry Finn and Ad Nauseam. Struggling through this. Okay, but I am excited to read this one. Again, I will probably wait for an audiobook so I can listen to it because that's how I prefer to read my nonfiction. But I'm intrigued, so I will be waiting for that one. Next up, we have The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, which is the first in a new series by him. I have never read a Joe Abercrombie book. I don't know if Grimdark is for me, but it seems like this or The Blade itself would be my starting points. Let me know if you think I should read The Blade itself, if you think I would enjoy it based on things that I have said. I don't know if I will even like this, but I am intrigued by the religious twist, I guess. This comes out May 6th. Am I out of order? A little. Sorry about that. This comes out May 6th, and it says, Brother Diaz has been summoned to the sacred city where he is certain a commendation and grand holy assignment awaits him, but his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers, practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters. And the mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from them, all in order to achieve its righteous ends. Elves circuit our borders and hunger for our flesh. Greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions and comfort. With a hellish journey before him, it's a good thing Brother Diaz has the devils on his side. So again, sounds like it's going to be grimdark. It's like horror fantasy a little bit, and I'm intrigued to see how this goes for me. I've never tried Joe Abercrombie before, and I would like to, frankly. So, and I'm excited that there's something that's not tied up in his other series, because it feels like he's written that series and then he's written like 2 companion series to it. Don't correct me if I'm wrong. I don't care, but I'm excited to read something that's not contained in that world. I imagine this is how people feel when Brandon Sanderson writes something that's not Cosmere related, because they don't want to read the 5,500 books in the Cosmere. And I get it. I truly do. The next up, we have another memoir nonfiction book called The River's Daughter by Bridget Crocker. This is supposed to come out on June 3rd. And it's supposed to be like memoirs like wild and educated. So just based on those things, I think I will like it. I have not read Wild from Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail or whatever. I do own it. It is a plan to read it at some point. I just haven't read it yet. But this says, after Bridget Crocker's parents split up in a vicious divorce, she moved with her mother from California to Wyoming to live in a trailer park near the Snake River. Her childhood was idyllic with a stepfather she loved and a new baby brother, and with the river as her companion. When her mother suddenly left her stepfather for a hippie eco-warrior and things went spectacularly wrong, Bridget returned to California to live with her explosive father until his violence sent her back to Wyoming. The one constant in her life was the Snake River, to whom she confided her deepest feelings. It goes on from there, but I do like, this sounds bad. I like a memoir where someone has gone through some like trauma in their past. Again, I like books that deal with grief. I like complicated family dynamics, especially when they don't have to do with my family. And I'm very excited to read this book. Again, I might wait for an audiobook of it, but I might not. I'm about to run out of battery on my laptop, so we're going to speed through the last 2 of these. But we have King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby, another author that I own 2 books by him. I've never read a book by him, but his books always sound so good. So here, it's mystery thrillers. This is supposed to come out on June 10th. And it says, when eldest son Roman Caruthers is summoned home after his father's car accident, he finds his younger brother Dante in debt to dangerous criminals, and his sister Nevaeh exhausted from holding the family and the family business together. Nevaeh and their father, who run the Caruthers crematorium in the rundown Central Virginia town of Jefferson Run, see death up close every day, but mortality draws even closer when it becomes clear that the crash that landed their father in a coma was no accident, and Dante's recklessness has placed them all in real danger. Roman begins his work for the criminals. Oh, interesting. So it sounds like Roman's going to join the criminal ring. Nevaeh is trying to uncover the long ago mystery of what happened to their mother, who disappeared when they were teenagers, and Roman is willing to do anything to save his family. Anything. So I'm very excited to read that one. Again, it sounds really, really fascinating to me. And I just want to read S.A. Cosby. I feel like I will like them. I just haven't given them a shot. I have Razorblade Tears and Blacktop Wasteland just sitting on my shelf, ready to be read. So hopefully I might get to those before I try this one, but we'll see. And then the last book on this list is called The Bachelorette Party by Camilla Sten. This sounds like a fun mystery thriller. So again, it's Scream meets The Guest List, okay? And it says, on a remote island near the coast of Sweden, 4 friends meet every year. Best friends since childhood. The idea is to drink beer, dance by the water, and shake off the weight of life's expectations. The location of the island is a secret to everyone but them. One night of reckless fun and secret sharing, and then they return to their normal lives. And then 10 years later, at some point I assume they're going to get married. They have a bachelorette party at a yoga retreat on a small island off the coast with similar characteristics to the tragedy years ago. Wait, hold on. I gotta read this whole thing, I guess. 10 years later, ever since she was a teenager, Tessa Nelson has been consumed by the story of 4 friends who disappeared on their annual trip to a remote island together. I should have read this more closely the first time. So apparently this book has 4 friends who always go for like one night of partying on this island that no one else knows about. And then one year they disappear. And so this girl, Tessa, is obsessed with it. Tessa's best friend is getting married. They decide that for their best friend's bachelorette party, they're going to this yoga retreat. They get there, it's probably the same island, and some funky stuff is going on. Sounds very interesting. The last line of this is, and it's someone else's last chance to get revenge. Revenge for what? Revenge on whom? I'm intrigued. But again, that book comes out in June. I already closed my laptop, so I can't look at it again. But thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments down below what you are looking forward to reading in 2025. Also, let me know if you are excited about any of these books, if you feel indifferent towards any of these books, if you think they sound bad. I would love to hear your opinion. That is it for me for today's video. I am trying to post 2 videos every week, so if you would like to see more videos from me, you can go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in another video very soon.